leadership network to examine the deeper strategic signals from the recent China-Europe summit and what they reveal about the shifting global balance of power. Mr. Williams, thank you very much for joining us. Why do you think China chose a pressure over partnership approach at this summit?
Because it has, as Mr. Trump would say, all the cards. The Chinese economic model prioritizes China's interests, narrow and selfish interests above all. And as your introduction said, China doubled down on its support to Russia, and China does not compartmentalize the economic with the strategic. It notes that Europe, and the European Union particularly, is adamant in resisting and opposing any concessions to Russia in the Ukraine war. So it's a double explanation: selfish economic interest, but also strategic interest as well, to erode, as you say, the dominance of the Western bloc, as the Chinese would say.
Well, was Europe really surprised by this strategy? I mean, with Trump back in office and threatening tariffs, was Europe expecting a charm offensive from Beijing?
Yes, and I think there were signs of a charm offensive a few months ago as Beijing struggled to absorb the consequences of this strategic shift and the strategic implications of these tariffs and Mr. Trump's wayward diplomacy. But I think, as you said, China has grown more confident in itself, and has appreciated that the European Union is a fragmented, weak, and powerless institution.
Mm-hmm. With China's rare earth export controls, they're rattling European industries. Could this finally prompt or push the EU to seriously de-risk from China?
Well, it's already tried to de-risk from China, but now the European Union and Europeans generally, even the UK, recognize that this rare earth policy renders Europe weak and vulnerable, and they will not bank anymore on the goodwill of the Chinese. I think Europe will have to take a hard-headed look and attitude to Chinese economic relationships.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Williams, does the relationship and the alliance between Xi Jinping and Putin, does it play any role in shaping China's stance towards Europe?
I think it plays a role. China hasn't fully supported Russia in its war. It's not overtly supplying arms to Russia, although it is supplying dual-use instruments, and which enable Russia to manufacture munitions and so on. But as I said before, China sees an opportunity to weaken the Western bloc as it conceives it. So the Europeans hesitate to separate their protection from the United States, and have submitted themselves and been submissive in relation to Mr. Trump, as we saw in the NATO Hague summit. And so China sees Europe and the United States as a bloc, And any weakening of this bloc means a strengthening of Chinese influence in the world. Above all, they want to weaken the United States, and China realizes that the United States depends heavily on the amplification of its power by Europe. And so I think, yes, to answer your question, the relationship between Putin and Xi is important in terms of China's attitude to Europe.
Mhm. Well, with both the US and China exercising their economic powers, now is it fair to say that both Trump's America and Xi's China now see Europe as strategically weak, maybe fair game?
Yes, I think so. Uh, Europe finds itself um, powerless, weak in a Hobbesian world, uh, where self-interest, uh, selfish self-interest governs, and the European emphasis on values and value-driven interests are outdated in this Hobbesian world.
Mhm. Well, then, it begs the question, how can the EU maintain geopolitical agency and maybe sustain this pressure from those two superpowers?
Uh, it is difficult because not all Europeans in the EU are united on what to do. Yes, there is a realization among the major powers, Germany in particular, who's changed its opinion on China. There is a realization that something needs to be done, something needs to be more firm, assertive in relation to China and the United States. But Europe has descended so low in its submission to the United States that to dig oneself, Europe, out of this hole will take a huge effort and a huge intellectual effort to envisage an alternative place for Europe uh, and an alternative, more assertive, coherent economic and strategic policy.
Mhm. Well, then, how urgent can Europe come up with a strategy or a scenario that could revive this transatlantic coordination while still defending its economic interests?
Uh, I don't know. That's a clear answer because I can't see uh, that all Europeans are united in the EU um, in terms of a coherent policy in the interests of the EU. And I think that's why you've been seeing of late emphasis on what's called the E3, the European three, Germany, France, and um, the UK. The UK is not in the EU, uh, to sort of be a directorate or steering uh, group for Europe as a whole. That E3 significantly omits a very important country, which is Italy, which is among the most transatlantic countries now in the EU. And Italy would fear the E3 going off at a tangent uh, without the support of the United States.
Mhm. Mr. Williams, now with China refusing to offer any meaningful concessions, is Beijing underestimating the long-term consequences of alienating the EU at such a strategic crossroad?
Possibly. But the problem with China's economic model is that it's favored investment, internal investment uh, into overproduction of goods Therefore, that it has to export in order for the model to survive. Chinese consumption, Chinese internal consumption is very low by Western standards. And so China has to ruthlessly export in order to preserve the stability of China and its economic and social model. But with the United States taking measures against this over production and over investment, it's the Europeans who are vulnerable. And therefore, I foresee the Europeans taking equally stringent measures against Chinese goods as the Trump administration has. In time, the Europeans will realize that almost it's a zero-sum game. Either the Chinese model wins or the European economic know-how production continues and will survive.
Then could Europe's emerging economic know-how, security doctrine mark the beginning of a more assertive and independent global posture, or is it still too fragmented to matter?
I think it's too fragmented, but something is happening. As you said, there's a crossroads, and sometimes countries fail to turn where there's a turning point. But if Europe does not turn, then it risks even more irrelevance than it actually has at the moment, and declining economic power and wealth.